Welcome to Dateline Bangkok. Today's guest is Zaw Latt, who's a veteran journalist from Myanmar. To, welcome to the show.
Minglawa Tommy.
How are you today? You okay?
I'm all good, man.
Yeah, you good?
Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to talk about the media situation in Myanmar, past and present. First of all, just want to talk about yourself, how you've spent 20 years in the media. That's right?
Yeah, I was the TVB, Democratic Voice of Burma Bureau Chief and also Director and started the Time Bureau way back, and maybe 20 years ago.
What year did you start?
I think 2006.
Oh, wow, okay.
And those days, TVB based in Norway.
Yeah.
They don't have office. So actually, I started the Time Bureau, open up with a very little 4 or 5 people, then expand to, what TVB today is, one of the key media outlets. In those days, we started with shortwave radio. Website was very rare. Then we started television, TVB TV in 2005. And when we started, people think we are crazy, running the TV station from exile. So what we do, we chase news and information inside Burma, Myanmar, and then we put on our satellite TV and also shortwave radio air back to Burmese. So we are chasing news and information from Burma because there were no independent media outlet.
So what was the situation in Burma then?
Oh, it's a heavy censorship.
Right.
Everything, even poverty. Everybody knows how poor Burmese is, but you cannot talk about poverty. That is one of the subject to censorship. If you want to touch on politics or other, it's long way. It's not tolerate at all. Okay. So the media situation was completely black out. There was only one version of truth, which is the army version.
Right.
And that is
true, as in the
state media, or what the journalists say, it is true. Okay. It is, you have to regard as true. They don't want any other alternative truth.
So there's one channel that's state media at that time.
Or same, Army channel, Myawadi or Amma TV. Amma TV does not Mr. TV.
So these are the state outlets.
State outlet was the only source of information. So we went to, I'm as an ADA student, during ADA uprising, there were no other media outlet apart from BBC, VOA, Burmese service.
That was in 1988.
Yeah, in the shortwave, we have to very, very low frequency, that shortwave, we had to listen what is going on in Burma. It's complete control by the general, by the army, because there was a military coup in 1962. Right. Since then, no more independence media.
In the 90s then, what was the situation? Was it similar to that? Was it just, like you mentioned, the BBC, VOA, were these the only international services available during that point?
It was only Burmese service, and TVB born in 1992.
So the 90s, we start to see this, creation of Burmese media, DVB. Myanmar was under military control.
Oh, it's complete one-party rule. Media is only in the army hand. Okay. And no other space.
So tell us a bit about you as a journalist then, your beginning as a journalist in 2006. Tell me what it was like. What was a normal day? How did you report? How did you gather information? How did you interview? Was there did you have to be careful? Give us an insight.
Because we have to protect our sources. Sure. That's what the primary responsibility of journalists. So if we interview some of our sources inside Burma, if they reveal who they are, because we broadcast and air back to Burma, they're in trouble.
You have to protect your sources.
So we have to be very careful. This is even radio, shortwave. And you don't have a picture. When we run TV, we have to be very careful.
So were you doing radio at that point?
Yeah, we were doing the radio.
For people who don't know about you want to share some information about what you were doing then, and when did that begin? Was that in the 90s?
Yes, because we were the student in 1988 at the base, and I did my master in Australia. So I came back as a researcher with one of the Australian overseas aid program. Right. That's how I started my media appearance as a commentator, contributor. When I joined 2006 full-time media worker, we've been thinking about how do we actually natural amplify our voices and our factual, not only fact, some opinion related to Burma. How do we lobby like regional, ASEAN, or wider global? These are the way of our thinking.
What was the feeling? Were people happy to hear more independent voices, commentators, people get into the media and talk about Burma? Give us an insight to that. What you remember?
It's ironic that when we run radio station, no regional government want to provide relay station.
Right.
So we were airing from Norway. Can you imagine, long way away without having a relay station in the region?
Right. That's for DVB, right?
That was a DVB.
Yeah,
so we have I will tell you, closest relay station was in Madagascar.
Right.
So to get our signal inside Burma, Myanmar, you have to put very long antenna, and then we are not legal.
Right.
So people were complaining, we are dying to get your information, what is going on, mainly about NLD party movement. But your signal is so weak. But people didn't understand our problem. But still, we got lots and lots of audience in that Burma because we are the only information, an independent source of information. So we got lots of complaint letters there. You are illegal. We risk our life to listen to you, but your signal is so weak. Do something about it without knowing our problem. That is also start thinking about satellite TV. We thought, okay, we need to change this platform. Those days, no internet. Internet came to Burma only 2030. No Facebook, there was no internet at all.
Well, we'll come to that in a second.
Yeah, so there was only shortwave radio or print.
For the viewers, for the listeners, Aung San Suu Kyi won Nobel Peace Prize in 1991. So 1992, DVB was born, and you transmitted from Norway because of that, right?
Because Norwegian government, they offer.
Right.
It's all linked with Aung San Suu Kyi and Nobel Peace Prize in 1991.
Give us the viewers, the listeners, some insight how important DVB was during the 90s and the early 2000s. How important was their transmission, their content to Burmese people?
When we did shortwave radio, we were basically reporting human rights abuses, and all these, mismanagement. But it is radio, the power of voice, and very low and clear, but it is the only independent voice out of the government.
Was it risky?
Very risky, and also only source of information what is going on in Burma.
Did you announce your name?
We were not really, name the names about ground journalists. It was we set up very complicated underground network.
Right.
But most of our success come from television.
Right.
Because a lot of people know how abuses Burmese army is like today. They've been very abusive from the start, and human rights violation. But nobody really sees it. Once we operate television, people actually see it and feed it, the power of picture. So most of our success comes from the part of the satellite television too. If you watch Burma VJ documentary, how DVB or undercover journalists work, it came out after Saffron Revolution 2008.
Right. Okay.
It's also Oscar nominee. It is about our undercover network and reporting from closed country.
How much of an impact then did that documentary have, reporting from a closed country? How much impact did it have at the time?
I think we were internationally recognized,
right,
as the Oscar nominee finding fight.
So it kind of put Myanmar's situation on the map, if you like.
Yeah, we can amplify what is going on in Burma to international community. Also, most importantly, our own people. But once you see, there is ongoing civil war, the army brutalities, to the ethnic people, or, in the area that where no media is present. Because the Burma video is all about Saffron Revolution, although monks are regarded as, our mantra, and they've been very badly cracked down, beaten. We were able to expose army brutality, and then people started to realize there is no way we can, continue with this military rule. So that's become, especially to the Burmese people, that we were awakened. This is the military government, how they respond.
So after 2008, we start to see the media environment in Myanmar certainly lead up to a change. So during the mid-2000s, the footage that DVB had taken was used by international media outlets.
You know, the international media, at the beginning, we were giving our footage. They didn't believe us. We were the activists.
Right.
But the video footage, you know.
Sure.
And then they start realize that we are also, I mean, they recognize we as a professional journalist, you know, taking no side, you know, very factual information. So we start to become with the writers, you know, the agencies, writers, APs, AFP, they become our regular customer, and you know, we become a primary source of information to feed in, especially the video footage.
Okay.
So that has also changed, and then that's how, you know, international media or international community start to recognize our role, and then we expand our undercover network inside Burma.
So the international media. So 2007, the Saffron Revolution, we were beginning to trust DVB's footage. You know, around the time of the 2008 Constitution, you know, what was the situation then? And then we can lead up to how the media environment changed in Myanmar.
2008 is another thing that we were able to report. I mean, it's not only drafting Constitution, it was a Cyclone Nargis. And then, you know, army is denying that it's not that bad. And then we start showing the footage of the, you know, impact of the Cyclone Nargis. And then also we won the documentary Rory Park Award. It's called Orphan or Cyclone Nargis.
DVB's footage, the media footage had played a prominent role to show the world and the rest of Myanmar
what's going on.
And that forced certainly. Did that force like the sort of the changes that were going to happen in 2008?
Yeah, and then we were start recognize that we became one of the main source. And then after 2008, there was a 2010 election.
Right.
Again, a lot of journalists denied, including Thai journalists,
to cover the election.
To cover the election to Burma, inside Burma, there was a military, you know.
Were you covering it then?
We did. I mean, I remember we have a chairman bureau. I was a bureau chief. All the Thai media with their, you know, OB satellite uplink, and then our studio. Whatever our feed, it's going into Thailand. That's how we began connected with the TBBC, you know, all the people. So they all under our TVB office in Chiang Mai.
How did the Myanmar authorities? But how did they stop them coming in? They refused.
They refused the journalist visa to cover election in 2010.
So people were applying for journalist visas to come in and to cover the elections in 2010, and they were just getting refused.
They were refused. So they ended with us, become a primary source of information. Okay. Because those days, election was boycotted by the Aung San Suu Kyi parties until 2012.
Right.
So we were the only primary source because we did the election coverage.
You were reporting on TV at that point. What was it like then to cover the elections? You know, to go to polling booths and things like that. You know, was there a lot of military personnel? Was it restrictive? Tell us a bit about covering it. So you had undercover reporters.
Undercover report because no one is allowed. Okay. No media, independent media allowed to report 2010 election.
Oh, right, okay.
So we were running our undercover operation inside and then sending out here.
How did you film it if you're undercover? I mean, that's interesting.
Those days we use a lot of spy camera.
Right.
And also, I mean, you name it, you know. And there was the small camera. And also the problem was not the coverage. Once we got footage, there was no good internet. So people literally has to cross through the border.
Right. So
they come to mess out and other they handed to do that. That's how we operate. And then we package it in the satellite TV and then send it back immediately.
So you'd have to come to Thailand to get internet connection
physically
to publish it.
But because of a very low connection. So that's how we thought Thailand is always important.
Because the internet was so slow in Myanmar, or maybe lack of internet, you had to cross over into Thailand to get the footage. How long did that take then? For would it take?
Like Yangon to mess out is only 2-3 days.
So it would take a few days.
And also we managed to put some satellite facilities. We've been using satellite facilities since Nugget. So I mean we already have some facility to break the news for their big event. So most of the breaking news came out of those days from the Burmese, from
So you could do that instantly?
Instantly.
Oh, wow, okay.
We already...
but that was certain stories.
It is very risky. You got death penalty if you have a satellite facility in Burma.
Oh, right, okay.
And also, we went... It's very expensive.
So you got the death penalty if you were caught with a satellite?
Yeah, satellite facility. You will get the death penalty.
So you were taking huge risks then?
Yeah.
But certain stories you would...
some story, breaking story.
You'd have to say, we have to get this out now.
Then we train some special team.
It's incredible, really, to understand about this because you were taking footage undercover with real risks, especially breaking news.
We were managed to train ourselves, operate, and for the special occasion, we have a special unit. Basically, we know that now it's also the same situation. After 2021 military coups, they deliberately targeting the journalists but we have price to pay too. In the old days, we have a DVB journalists, serving 20 years, or not only DVB, many other journalists,
Sure.
And Mizima, Ayawari, a lot of our journalists, we have to do free Burma VJ campaign because of, same as today, our journalists being locked up because of simply they are doing news.
In the 90s and the 2000s, I must say it's a real sign of resilience to take these risks from the media to show the world. I think it's incredible. Have you lost any colleagues along the way because of these risks?
We lost a lot of our comrades, our friends, either lock up or some die. But then we can't even openly say that they work for us. Otherwise, they will got unnecessary burden. We have a very complicated, very risk management, safety. Only the top management know who is working for us and that kind of thing.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying from the journalist's point of view, they are taking these risks knowing that if something happens, they get caught, they get arrested, or worse.
Oh, they knew it.
Yeah.
They happily, this is voluntary.
Yeah.
We explain how risks,
Sure.
For these, satellite operator, for example, but also we manage a kind of safety precaution, different from those who exposed to the feed, don't come to the uplink station, there will be middleman. You need a lot of human resources. If there is demonstration, someone on the feed is exposed, then you got a footage, don't come to the upload center, someone in the middle. We have to break down a lot of network and security measures,
2012, Aung San Suu Kyi, NLD. Tell me about that. Tell me about the media situation then, how it changed.
Okay, the biggest change is in 2012, Aung San Suu Kyi decided to enter the parliament, run the by-election. Then we got invited by the Thein Sein government, military government, saying that we will allow independent media back in your own country. I was the second person from DVB to get into Yangon, my own country, that didn't visit for 20 years.
Wow.
and then we were invited basically. And then in the promise of, we were allowed to run media openly. And only one thing we told them, one thing we were not negotiating is editorial independence. So originally it was not even DVB. DVB name was not allowed because they object Burma. They want DV They changed Burma to Myanmar, but we didn't agree. But basically we started to organize Yangon Bureau Office in 2012.
So DVB wasn't allowed?
Name by name.
By name, but
personally,
personnel were okay. So things were changing and the information flow was different then. So 2012 onwards then, after the election, they were invited back and people were setting up in Yangon. So up until the next elections in 2015, what was it like then for the Myanmar media?
Those days, 2012 to 2015, it is the testing ground. We didn't know how far we can go.
Right.
And also it is not completely free.
Right.
But the military government, the Thein government promised they want a media reform. So it was a kind of testing ground until 2015, another election. And they were a little tolerant, but there is an invisible line. Don't cross it, then, but we didn't have much incident because that is a kind of reform period. And also it is a kind of honeymoon period for media reform.
From their point of view, the military, Why do you think they allowed that? Or
They are survivors. Because if they don't change, they will not survive.
what was it like in the media in them years then? 2015?
2015, we had
onwards,
a
yeah.
kind of, I mean, again, you
Was
know,
it getting better?
not really.
But you were allowed to report.
That is what we are. I mean, we thought that if there is an anti government led by Aung San Suu Kyi,
Yeah.
we were getting better. I mean,
And she was in
personally,
power at this point.
Attitude to media also not that changed.
Right.
Because they said that, I mean, don't criticize too much. That is a message from
That was the information minister.
or even Aung San Suu Kyi.
Oh, really?
Them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Aung San Suu Kyi was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Not very-
don't push it.
But what changes? They were no harsh punishment under Aung San Suu Kyi government. We got a broadcast license those days, and that is a different. Military government never allow. So DVB dan Myanmar called a terrestrial digital TV license. Under Aung San Suu Kyi government, but we got the objection. At some point, we called Rohingya. So I had a meeting with the information minister, my friend, that they were not tolerate.
And they said, you're not allowed to cover it.
No, you're not allowed to call Rohingya the war.
Oh, not allowed to call them Rohingya.
Yeah, because under Aung San Suu Kyi government, they were regarded as Muslim minority in the Rakhine. That was the official term. So we argue, how do we refer them? They said, I mean, the minister know that it is not the right time, you know, Muslim minority from Rakhine.
But covering it, it was defined, or certainly even today, it's defined as a genocide. From what you were seeing, from the media was seeing, was that right? Was it a genocide?
Yes.
And it is a genocide.
Yeah, same. You know, there is it's not only Rohingya, now their own people in the middle of Burma, you know. Army, it is always the same. Very abusive, genocide, and I mean, there is at least, you know, there is a human right or war crimes or crimes against humanity. They commit all the time, but they were disguised. You know, it is the clearance operation. But media was not allowed to use the word Rohingya. That was a point of crisis. We almost lost our broadcast license and under the government too. Because they give that broadcast license, because we call them as a Rohingya.
Why was Aung San Suu Kyi so defensive about those accusations of genocide? Why was she defending it? And, you know, what was her argument from what you were
Her notion of reconciliation is reconciliation with the army. So she does not want to upset army.
Right.
Because all these crimes is committed by the army. Also, I know that, I can understand. So I think, you know, she is more concentrated to reconcile with the army instead of with the people. That's why, you know, she got into the trap.
Let's go on for today, the last few years. So 2021, military coup. Bit of a background for people watching and listening. There was elections in November 2020. There was a landslide victory for Aung San Suu Kyi and the NLD. The military were defeated. The military then claimed unsubstantiated election fraud. And that was their pretext, their reason to stage this military coup in February 2021. Aung San Suu Kyi and other politicians, the president of the NLD, they were arrested. Media licenses or media were banned. What happened there?
Okay. 1st February 2021, and I know that someone called me, there is military coups around 4 a.m. And then I was not sure, so I drove to the Yangon Army headquarters. Nothing happened. But I came back to the city hall, I saw the army trucks. And then I realized that there is a military coup. And then I quickly went back to my house and turned on our channel, then it's already freeze. Not only TVB, and also...
so you turned the TV on and it was froze?
Our territorial broadcast is already freeze. We can no longer... But we still continue our operation. And like, you know, that is, we always call it one food in, one food out media strategy. Because once we got broadcast license inside Burma, we still keep our satellite feed in Thailand. So once they turn on our terrestrial broadcast channel, and then we go on the satellite. So our channel is still accessible. And also digital platform. We got like 20 million or so. It is still ongoing. I mean, we will continue all the uprising, you know, all the anti-coup movement. We stay reporting from the ground.
And it's different now because you've got the internet and social media, so you can certainly, even if the TV is froze or You know, you can't turn on the channel. You've still got social media. And I know Facebook was very big during
True. Facebook came to Burma in 2013.
Yeah.
We got a lion's share on Facebook. Also, we do text messages on mobile phone.
Right. So the information flow was a lot more available than it was in previous.
Yeah, way better. Because we have a multi-platform, mainly on digital, mobile, and then on top of that, satellite TV.
So what did you do then as a journalist? Then the licenses, DVB's license being revoked. You were worried about being targeted yourself. I
We
guess.
have to shut down our office. They were raiding they sent the military intelligence. My house was raided.
Really?
They came in front of the house, and I mean, since they revoked, we were regarded as troublemaker, and so I think. We have to spread our operation. Also, don't forget, it was COVID. There is a lot of COVID.
Pandemic, So when the protests happened then, mass protests were going on for a long time before it's, evolved into what it is today. How big was the 2021 protests and sort of resistance at that point compared to the others?
Maybe biggest in the Burmese history. Or 2021, there is a 4-2. There was a little around 2 million people came out in Yangon alone. So I have never witnessed such a big gathering and amazingly very young people.
How were journalists getting around that? Were they worried about going to checkpoints or like the military were there? I mean, how was that?
They didn't start crackdown yet.
Right.
But
so the initial days it was okay.
Initial day right after maybe March, April. And maybe March. February, they somehow tolerate. They like to see the situation.
Yeah.
But starting from the revoked license, March onward, they start cracking down. We were become outlawed. I mean, not only us. Initially 5 media houses, then they expand more and more. They start deliberately targeting the journalists because even they shut down, there is still news going on.
How were they targeting? Like house raids? Was it physical attacks?
Since military coup in 2021, more than 200 journalists got arrested. Stay 43 behind bar. 11 got killed until now.
11
journalists, but we say 9. Then the known journalists killed, recorded, but 43 stay behind bar, and more than 200 journalists got arrested. So they start deliberately targeting because
was it just local journalists or was it international journalists as well?
But international journalists, they leave after some time. We thought, Burma will be open up.
Sure, it will improve.
Nobody expected this, harsh crackdown overnight. So this is different from our undercover life to very exposed, different life. But again, then thanks to technology, we got multimedia platform, mainly social media, other digital platform, able to continue our work.
If the military SAC, if the State Administration Council, what's their reason? What would they say? What's the reason why journalists don't register with the military? Is it because they give all the details?
There was even after military coups, they were inviting all the journalists to re-register. There was a big divide among the journalists whether we attend or whether, and also big debate about whether we register or not. And I think, for us, very simple. I don't think they will allow any independent space.
Right. So
they will not tolerate any criticism. And also they start introducing 505A, which is the incitement, which is the penalty.
The charges. Yeah.
Charges. Most of the journalists charged with 505A.
Yeah.
But now they charge with counter-terrorist, more serious case to lock up more.
So 505A, Section 505A of the Criminal Code, right?
It is Criminal Code incitement.
It's
instability, incitement
charges. And it's 3 years in jail, is that
3
right?
3 years jail. They reintroduced a new clause. But now journalists being charged, not with that one. They want to charge more serious one like counter-terrorist law.
Okay.
So 51 AB, and the Shindewi, the girls, the journalist got a life sentence, and not with this 505, but with the other counter-terrorist law.
What's it like for journalists to cover the situation in Myanmar today?
There is not much independent space inside Burma left. Although Army saying that they were tolerate some registered media. But it is fair to say that, you can't really criticize.
But for those who want to continue to independently report, because there's a lot going on in Myanmar and because, not obviously independent media is needed compared to state media and things like that. What's it like for a journalist today?
Those registered media, they have to compulsorily run army propaganda in their platform. That is one condition.
Right, that's a registered media.
Yeah, that is a registered media. So other media, we are mainly undercover, taking very risk, and you're not allowing, opening. And also, there are a lot of conflict. We have a 330 township, and more than 240 township, and heavy fighting. So the security, that's why, I said the nine journalists case, I'm in the battlefield. Recent one, 2 journalists got shot in Chaito. They were my student.
Wow.
I teach the mobile journalists to students. These days, mobile phone, you take with the mobile, how to make the soundbite and send it to the US station.
Right.
So mobile journalists become one of the most relevant one for the working journalists on the ground.
So mobile journalists, like citizen journalists as well?
Citizen journalists, mobile journalists.
Right, so you're using mobile and citizen journalists to get at the information because there's so many risks in the 330 townships around Myanmar. Okay, and do you give any of the journalists like security training and warnings?
We do.
What's that?
Basically, the priority is don't get killed or don't get caught. That is a very busy rule.
Right.
If we don't get stories this time, we will chase another time.
Right.
Don't be so ambitious.
Well, okay.
That is a very busy rule.
So protect yourself.
And also don't even reveal who you are. Don't even tell your mom you are the undercover journalist.
So protect
your
yourself.
Identity.
The main thing is to survive.
You are a journalist. You are responsibility to protest your sources. Don't put your sources. Do no harm. Don't put your source in danger.
Yeah, I mean Myanmar is one of the biggest jailers of journalists in the world. Its press freedom rankings
171 out of 180.
So that's the Reporters Without Borders.
That is RSF 2024.
Right. You know it. I was just going to look myself.
I can tell you all this number.
So yeah, for everyone listening and watching, the Reporters Without Borders, which is a media watchdog, ranks countries, 180 countries and territories around the world with their press freedom ranking. So it's in the bottom 10 of the world, which is a real sign of what's happened in Myanmar recently with the coup protests and then the resistance and the war that's going on now. Just a quick one on reporting on the advancements of the opposition and the resistance.
Okay.
Has the access been good from the opposition groups as well?
One of the time was country to cover the journalists. It does not mean that Burmese media press freedom is increasing. Maybe the Gaza other problem in Ukraine. That's why this ranking, and also the second most jailer country after China.
Right.
Basically, they are going to scrutinize your VPN and other. You have to register VPN. There is a new law, recently come out, and on the New Year.
So VPNs are banned
by law. There is a newly introduced, cyber security law in January. So you will get a more scrutinized. All the VPN has to be registered now.
So the military is trying to control what information is provided, the information flow in Myanmar.
It is not even reporting. It is a receiving information.
Right.
And through your phone, if you are not registered, you are in danger. So it's going to be more restricted.
So you've got some access to certain areas of Myanmar, but not everywhere because, and you've got certain MOUs, agreements in places. Okay.
Also, we are going to expand with NUG control 8 territory.
Right.
So it is, we are going to have an MOU with NUG, MOD, Ministry of Defense, and Ministry of Home and Immigration Affairs to have an MOU to give access to information in their control area.
Okay.
Same to AA, Arakan Army. That is work in progress that we are going to follow that event this year.
Okay. Give us a brief overview of the IPCM, the Independent Press Council for Myanmar. What is that?
Okay. I mean, with the military coups, they coup the Myanmar Press Council.
Right.
It is a legally formed under the news media law. But now it's chaired by the former USDP MPs, which is the ex-military, and also secretary, the son of the former general. So basically, our legal press council inside Myanmar, also, or military,
it's controlled by the military, yeah.
So we started together and we started to think about how do we have our self-regulatory bodies.
So you founded the IPCM?
Yeah. And then
Are you the secretary for it? Or?
I'm a secretary at the moment. So we have a code of conduct. So we basically want self-regulatory bodies, and then we found in Thailand. And we have a 37 media houses, small and big, you name it, like big one like Myanmar, ARD, or BNI, or ethnic media. And also we allow some individual freelancers and CJ as a membership.
Right.
So this is now already 1 year.
So it's to help journalists on the ground, to give them some support.
Our main aim is safety and protection.
So safety for journalists reporting in Myanmar.
Safety, protection, and access to information, and also regional networking like, FCCT.
What's the future of the media?
There will be protracted conflict will continue, and they will intensify. That is, you can't deny the fact on the ground.
Zaw Latt, thanks so much. I know we could speak for a lot more. I think we have to finish up today. So thanks so much for being on Dateline Bangkok, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tommy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. Dateline Bangkok is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And feel free to check the FCCT's website and social media for upcoming events here at the club. And stay tuned for more interesting guests on this podcast.